And we're back with Umineko.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Where did we leave? I actually do not remember where we left off. Okay.
My brain's not working.
Real.
My memory never works though.
Wait, can we like scroll up? Yeah, we left off on Jessica giving Natsuhi the charm. Okay.
Yeah.
It seems the weather will be like this all day tomorrow after all. Dang, this makes the good weather we had earlier feel like a lie. George Aniki and I were killing time in front of the parlor television. At that point, Jessica returned. Her face was still blank, but it looked like she'd calmed down a little since we'd last seen her. Is Maria still in front of the portrait? Nope. She just came back and she's sleeping over there on the sofa. It's getting pretty late for her after all. Looking at the clock, I saw it was a little past 10 p.m. Even if we were planning to stay up all night, it was about time to head back to our room. Well, my mom did have a room prepared for us in the mansion. What do we do? I'd rather head back to the guest house. Going by what we saw of our parents, I think it'd be better if we weren't in the mansion. I agree. Feels like they're telling us kids to mind our own business and stay out of their way. Let's be good little boys and girls and do that. As we were talking about this, Aunt Rosa came into the parlor. She was looking all over restlessly, probably trying to find Maria. Aunt Rosa, if you're looking for Maria, she's over there on the sofa. Thank you. My, she's out cold. We must move her to a bed. If you'd like, I'll carry her over to a bed. Thanks, that would be wonderful. Are you all heading back to the guest house? Or are you going to stay in the room Natsuhine-san had prepared here? We were just talking about that. We decided to head over to the guest house. I see. Then could I ask you to take Maria with you? I'd feel much more reassured if she stays with all of you cousins. Behind those words, she seemed to be concealing some regret that the adults, herself included, had deeply hurt Maria's feelings. Leave it to us, Aunt Rosa. After all, we do have an expert at comforting Maria with us. Are you talking about me? I couldn't do it myself. We'll need everyone together. That's right. Butler, weren't you the one who hit it off with Maria when you were messing around earlier? As he said this, Aunt Rosa smiled, looking truly happy. Thank you, everyone. It looks like our meeting will last until very late. So while I'm sorry to burden you like this, I'll be counting on you all to take care of Maria. Hey, Maria, are you sound asleep? We're going back to the guest house. Maria muttered something indistinct, rolled over, and fell back asleep. It looked like she was sleeping deeply. She's really out cold. I'd hate to wake her.
Her ass is not awake. Her ass is asleep. Her ass is knocked out.
Right, I'll carry her. Maria's body was much lighter than it looked, almost like she's a 9-year-old girl or something. I lifted her up and put her on George Aniki's back. It was raining hard outside, and Aniki couldn't hold an umbrella and carry Maria at the same time. It looked like Aunt Rosa would come with us as far as the guest house to help out. However, when she heard Uncle Krause's voice call out to her, she had no choice but to return. Now that's a problem. I have to go back now.
Is everyone returning to the guest house?
After we left the hall on the way to the entrance, the door to the servant room opened and Shannon-chan stepped out.
It has grown very dark, so allow me to guide you.
That would be great, Shannon-chan. George Kun is going to carry Maria there. Could you hold an umbrella for him?
Yes, certainly.
Shannon-chan brought umbrellas for each of us and a flashlight to guide the way. As we opened the front door, the downpour was quite terrific. It looked like we wouldn't have any spare time to take a pleasant walk and enjoy the nighttime rose garden. Aniki, is she too heavy? Want me to carry her? It's okay. I can at least carry Maria-chan. I'm truly grateful. Please take care of Maria. Sure, you got it. Then I guess this is good night, Aunt Rosa.
Then I will see them over there and return here.
Yes, please. Aunt Rosa watched us leave. Maria, I'm sorry for everything. Rosa's mumbling voice didn't reach the person in question, nor any of the kids, but disappeared beneath the sound of the rain.
Yeah, go tell her when she's awake.
After cutting through the rainy rose garden, we arrived at the guest house. Ah, if only I applied for the position of Maria carrier. Damn. Okay. Then I would have gotten a chance to have Shannon-chan's huge boobs rubbing all over my arm. Do with that audio clip as you will. That's not why I did it. It's a misunderstanding.
I thought that if I didn't walk like this, George-sama would get all wet.
Instead, it's someone else getting all wet. Good joke, me. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wasn't expecting it.
Come on, quit babbling and go in. After being urged on by Jessica, we folded up our umbrellas and went into the guest house.
Has anyone gotten their clothes wet? I can bring some towels if you want.
You don't need to worry about us that much. Thanks, Chan-chan. That's right. We were planning to play cards or something. Would you care to join us for a bit? Huh? Who had the night shift on today's schedule?
I believe we had a special schedule during the family conference. Also, I think a few alterations have been made, so I will go and check.
Wait, if you have to go all the way back to the mansion to find out, don't force yourself.
Oh, that's all right. I can find out from the servant room in the guest house. Please excuse me for a short while.
Shannon-chan gave a quick bow and went to the guest house servant room. The rest of us headed for the cousin's room and decided to put Maria to bed for the time being. Maria was sleeping very deeply, and there was absolutely no sign of her eyes opening. For now, we get some soft drinks out of the room's refrigerator and drink those while playing cards or something.
Oh, Kanon-kun? You're here too, Genji-sama. What has happened with tonight's shift? Kraus-sama has given an order. He made some sizable changes to the shift schedule.
Indeed. Goda-san now has the night shift at the mansion. Shannon and Kan have the night shift in the guest house. Kumasawa-san and I have been ordered to sleep in the guest house. Just now a phone call came, saying that once you arrived, you were also to remain here for the rest of the night.
Huh? That certainly is a sizable change. The shifts at the guest house and the mansion have been completely reversed, haven't they?
Originally, Shannon and Cannon had been assigned the night shift in the mansion, while the night shift in the guest house, where all of the relatives were staying, had been assigned to Goda, who had an abundance of experience in entertaining. Kumasawa should have been sleeping at the guest house, while Genji should have been sleeping in the mansion. However, it seemed that Kraus had suddenly ordered that the schedule be modified. The shifts at the guest house and the mansion had all been reversed, and Genji was spending the night in the guest house.
It's probably because of Beatrice-sama's letter. Why, probably. After such a mysterious letter appeared, it was only natural that Kraus-sama would suspect one of us. We served directly under the master, so Kraus-sama tried as best as he could to keep us far away from the family conference.
Genji, Shannon, and Kanon were all permitted to wear the Ushiromiya family crest, the one-winged eagle, as the servants who served directly under Kinzo. Of course, since they were working for the Ushinomiya family, they had to obey anyone's orders, but their only boss was Kinzo. Since only Kinzo held the right to employ them, even Kraus could have them dismissed of his own accord. Because of this, Kraus and the others often viewed these servants as Kinzo's underlings and shunned them. And in fact, Kinzo seldom let anyone other than them enter his study. This sudden change was probably a clear expression of the sense of mistrust that had caused. Considering the time Kinzo had left to live, this would definitely be the last family conference before the problem of the inheritance came up. On top of that, the mysterious letter that claimed to be from Beatrice had dropped in out of the blue. Kraus definitely wanted to keep Kinzo's loyal subjects away from the table of such a delicate and important discussion. If you would excuse me, I will go rest. If anything happens, call me immediately. Our guest tonight is a special case, after all.
Yes, certainly, Genji-sama.
Genji nodded back and went behind a screen, took off his jacket, and slowly began to relax after a day's worth of tension.
The ones who just returned now, were they the children? Yes. The other relatives are having a conference in the mansion. It looked like it would drag on for quite some time.
Sorry, Toby just sent me a post on Instagram.
And you're gonna send it to me?
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Toby of the Quarry and Homestuck fame. If Michael Myers was 21, he should have been at the club.
Most iconic post of all time.
Oh god.
I wouldn't be too surprised if he actually said that originally.
It does seem like something he'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Then we've got it easy. It's already this late, and there's this weather. The rest of the relatives will probably spend the night in their rooms in the mansion. Yes, probably. I'm only saying this because Genji-sama isn't around.
isn't he, like, right behind this screen?
I don't know, maybe he left the room.
Because, like, he said, he went behind the screen, took his jacket off, and started relaxing, so...
Oh, yeah.
He's just hearing this.
They're speaking very quietly. But I'm a little happy I was sent to the guest house, I guess. Oh? Why is that? Because you can stay away from Madam and Eva-sama, those bullies. Or do you have another reason? It's not as though I have... the reason? I see. Then let's do our best together with our night shift. I'm counting on you, Nason. Uh, um... Just now, I was asked to go to the children's room and play with them.
Her blush is cute. I just like Shannon, I like her. Shannon hung her head apologetically, gazing at Cannon uncertainly. Cannon didn't try to meet her eyes, and spoke curtly as he sighed. It looked like he didn't plan on indulging his sister.
You can't. You were assigned to the night shift. Besides which, isn't it necessary for furniture like us to wait, it isn't necessary for furniture like us to respond to an invitation to play.
It's wild how just flipping those two words completely changed the meaning of a sentence.
Yeah, and I just knew because he'd never say that. You understand, right? Yes, I do understand.
Shannon's shoulders drooped slightly. She had already expected that Cannon, a stickler for the rules, would say something like that, but she still seemed a little discouraged. As Cannon flipped through a logbook, he spoke without facing Shannon.
That means the children will be waiting for you. You'll have to apologize and tell them you have the night shift and won't be able to stay with them. Go and come back. Huh, yeah, yes. But I missed it's fine.
No, what's up?
Oh, I thought I just said it wrong. I kind of said it a little bit wrong, but it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I'll go apologize and come back.
Shannon Hurley stood from her seat before her brother's mood could change and flew out of the servant room after giving a quick bow. As he watched her go, Cannon took a single deep breath. Genji's voice came from beyond the screen. He heard all of it. Kanan, I will be here so you can go too.
Genji-sama. Shannon was the only one called. It's not as though I was invited.
That is only because you were not there at the time. If you had been, you would have been invited as well. It is good to play as a child from time to time.
No, such a thing is not necessary for me. Human children may have a need to play, but we are furniture.
God damn! Is that so?
Nei-san is also furniture. Even if she pretends to be a person, you will only hurt her later. I understand that, so I try not to get too close to people. That's all.
I wonder if this might be a bit of a translation thing, because it's so fucking wild to be like, yeah, we're furniture, right? Like, that's a wild thing to say. I wonder if, like, it's a translation thing, and it's just like, it's, this was the closest translation, you know?
I will look that up for you.
Like, I wonder if it was like a translation or localization thing, because I don't know, it just feels so weird to be like, yeah, we're furniture. No matter how mentally ill Canon is, because oh boy, that boy needs some therapy. Like maybe it's in the original Japanese, it was closer to something along the lines of like, not the same status or class, you know?
Yeah, I can't. I've never seen anything about the original words that were used,
Yeah,
actually.
because like Genji clearly cares about Canon. It feels weird that he would like not say anything about Canon calling himself furniture, you know?
Yeah.
So, that I know that was random, sorry.
Um, yeah, no, I can't seem to find anything about it.
Yeah.
And I don't, even with like a cursory Google search, I don't think I could find anything if I delve deeper,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, who knows? That requires a level of research that I'm not willing to do right now.
Yeah.
Genji did not say anything after that. After a while, he stood up and used a pot of hot water to make powdered cocoa, serving some to Canon as well. Is that for real? I had no clue! Dumbass, you're too loud. You'll wake Maria up. Battler was so surprised that he yelled obnoxiously and scattered his cards everywhere. His voice caused Maria to turn over once, but she soon fell back into a deep sleep. Jessica gave him a jab and he lowered his voice. Still, seriously, now that you mention it, they really did have that kind of atmosphere, didn't they? I see. So George Anarchy is... George couldn't be seen anywhere in the room. A short while ago, when Shannon came into the room, George suddenly said that he'd forgotten something in the mansion and needed to go back and get it. Shannon said that she would guide him, just like she had on the way to the guest house, and the two of them departed together. Well, there's actually been signs of it for a while now. Questions about hobbies and favorite things? I always thought it was a bit much for a passing interest, and look what's happened now. Come to think of it, I get the feeling George Anarchy's always been overly nice to Shanna-chan. Now I get it. Are you ready to have a very serious scene with my George voice?
I am. I'm gonna be totally fine. I think.
According to the weather report, it looks like it'll be at its worst tonight. It also seems like it'll last all day tomorrow, though it should get a little better.
Really? Then maybe the boat won't arrive until the day after tomorrow. I hope that doesn't interfere with your work on Monday.
I already knew the typhoon would be coming beforehand. Just in case, I made sure I didn't have any plans for Monday, so it's okay. I may not look it, but I really am the type who can plan ahead in a schedule. George puffed out his chest, acting proud. Compared to the calm appearance George always had as the oldest cousin, he now looked amusingly like a little kid. Shannon chuckled at this abrupt contrast.
I feel surprised you're, well, so well prepared. As someone who will bring prosperity to his company someday.
Well, making a company prosper really is a tough job. Money isn't the only thing that's important. I learned that well when studying under my father. Making a company prosper is like owning a castle and leading your subordinates. My dad really loved reading about great leaders during the warring periods of Japan. A hobby that's probably influenced by the fact that he shares uh, Toyotomi Hideyoshi's name. Much of his philosophy on managing businesses come from talking about them. Did you know? Takede Shingen, who was feared as the leader of the strongest cavalry corps in the warring period, started out with his troops in complete disarray and didn't have the kind of strong leadership necessary to utilize them well.
Is that true? And that's a little unexpected.
In order to unite his troops, Shingen showed his excellent leadership in many ways. For example, when a soldier succeeded well in battle, he would immediately honor them with a medal. Normally, that kind of thing was put off until after the war, and they were all awarded at once. He continued this diligently while in the field of battle, and immediately showing his appreciation for his troops' military exploits motivated them in an extremely significant fashion. Also, whenever one of the troops was brought down by an illness, he would be the first one to rush up to them and care for them, and so on. Takeda Shingen wasn't just the man who led the strongest cavalry corps in the warring period. He was the person who cared the most for his troops throughout the warring period. It's so hard to keep up this voice during this.
Do you have anything to drink?
No, it's not that. It's just hard to keep up acting like a stupid fucking stoner while he's having this like actual coherent speech.
Yeah, understandable. And because he was that kind of person, all his troops went along with him.
The truth was, Shannon had already heard this story several years ago.
I never noticed, I never picked up on this as much. It makes George sound so pathetic.
Just constantly talking about his dad.
He's talking about he's probably just repeating some story his dad told him, I don't know.
Yeah. It is said, I'm pretty sure they said something about Hideyoshi constantly repeating stories, so.
Yeah.
But whenever a discussion of his father led to this sort of topic, George would always glow and look like he was having a great time. So Shannon just smiled without interrupting, urging him to continue. Of course! In a capitalist world, money determines both your strength and the height of your fortifications. But you can't build up a castle or succeed in war all by yourself. Such things can only be accomplished with the support of many subordinates by borrowing their strength. After understanding this, when I look at my father's back, I realize how immature I am. I can clearly see how much competition he had to overcome before building up all he has now.
George-sama, you truly look up to your father. I'm jealous.
Sorry, that's not how I meant it.
I'm sorry, that's not how I meant it either.
The two of them awkwardly looked at their feet. Shannon had no parents. She had been brought up in an orphanage owned by Kinzo called the Fukuen House. Under the guidance of Kinzo, their honorary director, the orphanage offered members who excelled a chance for on-the-job serving experience. If their efforts met with Kinzo's approval, they'd be able to leave the orphanage and work as servants for the Ushiromiya family. This was considered to be the highest honor for those who lived in the orphanage. Servants from the Fukuen house all took names with the character on in them while they served. So Shannon wasn't her real name. The same way for Canon. All of the members of the Fukuen house were orphans, and they were all people who had been separated from their parents under special circumstances. Because of this, the orphans had been taught to think of each other as their only family. That's why it seemed so natural to both of them when Cannon called Shannon his sister. And while both Shannon and Cannon were working in the mansion today, there were several other servants possessing the character in their names, such as Manon and Lennon, who often worked in a rotation schedule. However, there were not many servants who stayed with the Ushiromiya family for long. It was standard for them to quit after 3 years. So you could probably say that Shannon, who had been working for 10 years, was a notable exception to the rule. Working as a servant for the Ushiromiya family was a heavy burden to bear, but the pay wasn't bad at all. Working for a full 3 years would earn more than what was needed to enter mainstream society. That was why, even though the orphans realized what a harsh task working for the Ushiromiya family was, they still hoped to be accepted. Maybe the fact that Shannon managed to continue working for 10 years wasn't because she had more willpower than the other servants. Maybe she'd gotten stuck working for 10 years because she didn't have the courage to say she wanted to quit. Kinzo couldn't even trust his own blood relatives, and those excellent servants sent from the Fukuen house were the only ones he could rely on. Because of that, Kinzo would sometimes allow them to wear the family crest, as servants under his direct control, and have them work close to him. You've been working here for almost 10 years now, right? You must have saved up a lot of money by now.
I wonder... It's not like there's anything in particular I'd like to buy. After all, a few million yen isn't enough to live off for the rest of your life.
So the rest you've been working all this time wasn't to hit some shit. So the reason you've been working all this time wasn't to hit some target sum?
Yes, that's right. I have nowhere to go outside this mansion. And I have been getting along well with my lady and the other young servants. Madam does scold me sometimes, but caring for the roses and cleaning the mansion is fun.
Wait, who's Milady?
Jessica?
Oh yeah, they do call her Milady. Alright, okay. That threw me off for a bit. I was like, wait a second. You don't get along with Natsuhi. But that can't be your entire life, Shannon-chan. No, say up, man, Chan. Shannon cast her eyes downwards when she heard her real name. She understood what George was trying to say and fell silent. There's something I've learned as I continue to study, even after becoming an adult and a full-fledged member of society. A human's life is not as monotonous or short as we thought when we were kids. All school-age kids have certain fears. Is this George saying this?
This is the narration.
They wonder whether they'll live the rest of their lives like sleepy classes after a monotonous and boring school day. Spending their time in a carefree laziness without anything interesting happening until it's all over. However, life's only like that for underage students. Compared to a human's life, the time they spend as students is nothing more than a blink of the eye. A period where they break through the shells of their immaturity. The inside of the shell might be a hot, suffocating, and boring world. But the world beyond that shell is vast and filled with limitless possibilities. So far your life has been trapped inside the shell called Shannon. I think you're under the mistaken impression that your life will continue like this forever.
That's...
Shannon couldn't deny those words. She'd been unable to harbor any clear doubts about her lifestyle. And since she never had any hope or goals for changing herself, she lazily continued living the way she always had. And if asked whether this life was satisfying, she wouldn't have been able to nod. She may have been intentionally averting her eyes from the truth. Without George's admonishments, she would have continued pretending not to notice as her real life slipped away bit by bit, neglected.
George-sama, is it wrong for me to continue living this way?
Yeah, it is. Oh, and by the way, didn't you break one of our rules just now? George immediately gave a strict answer, then broke off into a mischievous smile. Shannon already knew what she was being chided for, and she hung her head, apparently embarrassed. Didn't you promise not to use Sama when the two of us are alone?
I couldn't obey that as a promise. But if it was an order, I would have to obey it. Because I'm furniture.
Then it's an order.
Huh? Why do you reserve that for the weirdest moments?
I think it's funny.
It's pretty funny. But it's the kind of funny that just it confuses me.
Yeah, good. Gotta keep you on your
I'm
toes.
never expecting it.
Exactly.
It's what?
Gotta keep you on your toes.
Yeah. Yes. Certainly, George-san.
As Shannon hung her head, I was about to make a stupid joke popped into my head right before I started reading that line. And I was like, no, I can't say that. But then I thought about it more and it made me laugh more. It is no reason to make me laugh. It's a bad, stupid joke.
I have a feeling I know what you mean, but I'm not entirely sure.
George Sand's Undertale.
Oh.
I know it's bad! I know it's a bad joke. I don't know why. It stopped me in my tracks. Okay. As Shannon hung her head, her face red, she said George's name again, this time following it with San. Yeah, that's fine, Sayo-chan. George smiled at Shannon. No. Sayo. Sayo? Sayo?
Sayo.
Sayo?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. To praise her small act of bravery. He said nothing about her quick furniture remark. Sorry, I'm hung up on that. That also might.
This is just a normal Shannon thing.
Yeah, that also might be. I don't know. I'm starting to think that maybe it is like a sort of a close, not exactly a mistranslation, just like a not quite localization. You know.
Mm-hmm.
This short exchange alone made it clear how far back their relationship must have stretched. For a long while, the two talked as if the weather raging about them didn't even enter their thoughts. They talked about the many memories they built during their relationship that no one else knew about. Every once in a while, a flash of lightning would attempt to interrupt them, but this could sully neither the roses nor the time they spent blushing at each other. That's right. I have something I wanted to show you. Zip.
Stop it! Shut the fuck up!
Best reaction to any joke I've ever made. Oh,
This is just making it worse. Hold on.
oh fuck.
What could it be?
George, who had been speaking eloquently, suddenly started to stutter. Watching him, Shannon seemed to guess something. George timidly searched through his pockets. Um, Something got caught in the depths of his pocket, and just like the stuttering George, it took a while to get it out. It was a very small box. A small box covered in a deep blue velvet. That peculiar shape was enough to tell anyone what was resting inside. Shannon had prepared her heart for somewhat certain beforehand that this is what he'd been planning. But even so, when she actually saw it, she couldn't avoid blushing once more. Remind me, how old is Shannon?
Do you want me to?
Yeah, how old is Shannon?
She is 16.
Remind me how old George is?
You know, you can say this one.
No, I actually can't remember his age off the top of my head.
Oh, he's 23.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not great. That's not great. And before anyone possibly goes into the comment section and say the age of consent is lower in Japan, no, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
From my knowledge, there's like a federal like minimum of what it has to be, but most other sections throughout Japan have their own, most of which it being 18.
Also, as we'll learn a little bit later, they haven't had sex, and it's still not okay because
Yeah.
for so many reasons.
Also, the massive power imbalance. Like, it's one thing if Shannon was like a regular servant of a regular mansion, but no, this is a girl who's been working at this house since 6 years old on an island for 10 years. Like, no, she needs to know more about life in general. Like,
yeah, she has not been an adult ever.
yeah,
this guy works a job.
This guy has a job. Okay, anyway. George opened the small box, took something out, and held it out for Shannon to take. I want you to take this.
I couldn't accept something so valuable.
You can't take it? He has the fucking, like, anime villain glasses glance.
His glasses are just fogging up. He's breathing too hard. No. I'm unworthy of such a thing.
Sayo, This isn't a request.
Stop.
It's an order. Take this ring, okay? I mean, it sounds sinister as hell, right?
Yeah, but it's
Like,
only reading it.
yeah, like,
If there was the regular voice acting, it wouldn't sound so sinister.
yeah, like I realize that. However, it's just him like doing this. Like, we find out later that this is like a normal thing he does, like saying it's an order. That kind of implies
Yeah.
it implies that he
No,
also,
he's done this earlier. It's not just find something we find out later.
yeah, like we see this a lot. It also implies that he too realizes there's a massive power dynamic, and he's abusing it. Like, that's what it comes off as.
Yeah.
I have my issues with this pairing.
Yeah, he seems a lot like not to I don't want to defend him, but he doesn't seem like he would abuse it too far, but he uses it in a way that he knows that he thinks he knows what's best for her.
Yeah, that's exactly it. He seems like the guy to be like, I know what's best for you. Like, not even if I don't even think he's doing it in a malicious way. Even
Yeah.
I think he needs therapy to help deal with his mommy issues. Because no doubt, Ava raising him left some scars. No doubt in my
Yeah.
mind.
And we know Hideyoshi let her and probably didn't have any objections.
Yeah. Anyway,
I don't even know if he's the number one enabler in this series though.
Kinzo is.
We'll see.
Like, Kinzo's 100% the biggest enabler just for letting Beatrice do what she does.
Mm-hmm. Uh uh if it's an order, I cannot disobey.
Yeah, that's right. Well done. Ah! Shannon, not wanting to show her bright red face, timidly accepted the ring from George's hand while still staring at the ground.
Are we getting the ground POV right now?
That ring wasn't a simple accessory. It was a noble object, meant since ancient times to be offered to a special woman under special circumstances. Therefore, while George could order her to take it, he cannot order anything beyond that. With how not great Shannon is, like how not doing so good she is, he 100% can.
Yeah.
Anything beyond that would depend not on an order, but on Sayo's own will. So from here on, I'm not ordering you anymore. I should have done that from the beginning to build up a sense of respect, right? Sayo, I want you to give me your answer by tomorrow without using words. Do you understand?
Uh, how should I? Also, I just found out recently that when British people type ER or ERM, it's not like or it's just like because R's are pronounced more subtly in a lot of British dialects, and my mind is like it feels like the gears in my mind have turned.
More proof that British quote-unquote people are actually people.
Wow, you're gonna get cancelled for being an Anglophobe.
I won't order you any further, so this isn't an order. But a ring is something you put on your finger after all. If you like it, you can just put it on any finger you choose. Shannon had only pretended not to know. She already understood what he wanted her to do. But she was standing at a huge crossroads of her life, at only 16. Look how late it's gotten. Let's call it a day. George turned away from Shannon, acting just a bit bluntly. I could probably order you to wear it on your left hand. You might be timid and dependent enough to actually obey that kind of order. But I want at least this last step to be done by your own will, Sayo. How could the voice acting not change? How could the voice acting change how sinister that sounds? Like that.
You're right.
That's like
But it's supposed to be off-putting. Like it's supposed to be kind of off-putting, but speaking normally, if you know what I mean.
Oh, God. Understand.
Yes.
So that's my order. I want you to think about it well tonight and show me your answer tomorrow. Shannon nodded back. Today was the culmination of their many days spent together. This moment certainly hadn't come as a surprise to Shannon. We should be getting back to the guest house soon. If we take any longer, we'll make everyone worry about us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just remembered something I had to do in the mansion, so, I have to go back to the mansion.
At a time like this? Is that true?
Yeah,
George.
we have to have our proposal photo shoot first. Surprise!
Surprise! The entire family come out of nowhere? What? George stared into Shannon's face as he laughed mischievously. He definitely saw through Shannon's lie. However, when he saw how she felt, he could sort of understand that she might be so embarrassed that she'd want to be alone. So, because George realized the meaning behind Shannon's lie, he accepted it. Fucking Disney-ass music playing. Alright. Next scene. Shannon entered the entrance hall to the mansion with a tottering gait. A mixture of exultation and uncertainty gave her a feeling that she couldn't easily describe. It swelled up in her chest until it felt like she was about to burst. After stopping for a second in front of the servant room to take a deep breath and calm her heart, she opened the door. Inside, Goda, who had been ordered to take the midnight shift at the mansion tonight, was absorbed in a worn-out crossword puzzle magazine. He looked up for an instant to see if one of the family had come, but when he realized it was a fellow servant, he returned to his puzzle as if nothing had happened.
Kenji-sama told me to come and help you. Is that so? That's a relief. I was just about to go check that the mansion was fully locked up, but I felt uneasy about leaving this room unmanned. After all, Kraus-sama and the others' meeting looks as though it will continue for quite some time. They might request some tea at any moment. True. Then, what shall we do? Should I watch over? In that case, forgive me, Shannon-san, but I'll ask that you patrol the mansion. I will stay here, awaiting the family's orders. Yes.
Shannon was slightly disgusted. Even though she'd come here to help out as a favor, she was casually being forced to do the job of the person actually on duty. Furthermore, after one-sidedly forcing that task on her, Goda returned to his magazine once again and became immersed in his crossword puzzle. Shannon bowed her head as a token sign of respect for her elder. then left the room to patrol the mansion. Thanks to her being a bit ticked off, she managed to suppress that floaty feeling she'd been having until just now. And anyway, she couldn't let Genji or Ken see her looking like this. She wanted a little time to herself until her heart calmed down, so maybe going on patrol wouldn't be so bad. She began to hear the tumultuous voices of family discussion coming from the dining hall. Someone was speaking at great length, only to be interrupted by someone else. The second person also began to speak in a very long, drawn-out fashion, until yet another person interrupted. That kept on repeating. It was as though their displeasure was seeping out through their voices. She had been told to go to the guest house, so it would be bad if Kraus discovered her. Thinking this, Shannon dashed past the dining hall. Why can't I talk? Then she went along a prearranged route through the dark mansion, checking that all the locks were secure. She walked down the hall, checking each window. There were no humans on Rokkenjima other than those connected to the family, so locking up didn't really serve much of a purpose. No one had been in the habit of locking up the Ushiromiya head family, at least not until Natsuhi had scolded them for being careless. The metal fixtures on the windows were ice cold, and as she checked them one by one, the glow in her heart seemed to cool down. Oh god. Were those were, oh my god. I thought we left those back in the quarry. Rena, I think those were horror stingers.
Can you explain to me, please?
There was a running joke. The two running jokes me and Toby did in the quarry was that the campground just had an ancient Native American burial ground. Because, horror cliche. We just kept making jokes about it. And the second one is that there's that horror stingers, like the random fucking jump scare noises or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that those are around and that their natural habitat was blocked off. So they're just around now. So I think they migrated to Rokkenjima.
Damn.
We got some wild horror stingers in here. Oh fuck. At that time, she thought she saw something twinkling across the hall. Twinkling? How can anything be twinkling through the darkness of the hall? She figured she must have been imagining it, but she still held her breath. Grasping a curtain, she fearfully gazed down the hall. However, other than the occasional crack of thunder brightening the hallway, she was unable to glimpse any flicker again. It must have been her imagination after all. Maybe her heart was so agitated that she'd seen something that didn't even exist. Shen went back to checking the windows. However, a certain unnerving memory was resurrected in the back of her mind. It was that ghost story, which had been passed down amongst the servants who served the Ushiromiya head family. The mansion had two different masters, one of the day and one of the night. Beatrice, the master of the night, would sometimes fly around the mansion in the form of sparkling butterflies. That was the story. Come to think of it, didn't Kanon-kun once say he'd seen it with his own eyes? Though he got sulky when I said he must have imagined it and refused to believe him. Could it possibly be true? The roar of the thunder gave no answer. I felt like I lost my mind for a second there. Because, like, I glanced away, but how I glanced, it, like, my eyes fucked up and it made it look like the portrait winked.
No.
And I was like, what the fuck? Are we not? Okay, we're just saying. Okay, I thought I was gonna get to do more evil man voice.
Montage.
Are they just letting us know where everyone is?
I guess so.
Because apparently Nanjo's in the fucking void. Oh, fuck. Sorry, I didn't realize there was gonna be such a massive time skip, and I'm just remembering what we're about to walk into.
Hee.
Hee hee. The second day, October 5th, 1986.
Whose voice is that?
Gods.
Okay.
Genji tightened his bow tie and looked outside through a crack in the curtains. Maybe the rain had died down a tiny bit since the previous night, but the thick rain clouds didn't seem like they'd be letting any trace of the morning sun get by. The morning was dim and far from refreshing. It seems it would last all day after all.
Sorry for keeping you waiting, Genji-sama.
I have no idea what voice I'm doing for Genji. It feels like I'm flipping through accents at such a wild rate that, like, not one is sticking.
Oh, it totally is.
Cannon finished checking his appearance and exited the washroom. On their normal schedule, it was rare for anyone to have to suffer going straight from a midnight shift to an early morning shift. They were on a special schedule for the 2 days of the family conference. However, unless the typhoon passed today, the relative stay on this island would last until tomorrow. Cannon thought it best to be prepared for the special schedule to last an extra day. The two of them left the guest house, opening their umbrellas. The rose garden had been devastated by the wind and the rain on the previous night. Even though they'd spent several days making it beautiful to welcome the guests, one stormy night was enough to ruin it. Cannon sighed. The two headed for the mansion. They were supposed to meet up with Goda and prepare breakfast. Goda was such a perfectionist that he had probably already woken up and was probably already preparing a breakfast as exquisite and elegant as glasswork. They reached the overhang by the entrance to the mansion and folded up their umbrellas. Genji took a bundle of several keys from his pocket and unlocked the front door. The Ushiromiya family mansion was the only thing on Rokkenjima, so in the past, they hadn't been in the habit of locking up. However, Natsui had ordered that the mansion be locked up from midnight to early morning. Ever since then, unlocking the door in the early morning had become part of the servants' morning shift. This task had been given to Genji and Cannon so that Goda could start preparing breakfast as soon as he woke up. Silence had fallen in the mansion, giving the impression that the mansion itself was still asleep. Well then, let us begin the morning chores.
Yes, sir.
The two of them split up and began opening the curtains throughout the mansion. If the curtains stayed closed, the mansion would remain enveloped in faint darkness, as though it was still trapped in the previous night. Following a well-rehearsed procedure, Cannon went around the mansion, opening the curtains for one window after another without having to retrace his steps once. Even with this horrible weather, drawing the curtains had made it feel just a little bit like morning. While doing that, he passed in front of the kitchen. Even though he hadn't smelled anything yet, his stomach started aching for some of Goda's prized cooking.
Good morning.
He tried to greet Goda, who should have been getting breakfast ready, but Goda was nowhere to be seen. The kitchen was darkly lit, and not only were the curtains not open, but the fan wasn't even running. It was still cold, without any trace of a fire being lit, so of course there were no signs of breakfast being made either. Though it would have been inexcusable, perhaps Goda had overslept. Even servants are only human. They sometimes sleep in and show up late. In the rare case that such a thing happens, it's part of a servant's code to hide the unsightly scene before anyone notices, smoothly cover it up, and make sure the family never even realizes that anything has gone wrong. Cannon took the receiver of the phone that had been fitted to the wall and dialed the number for the extension line in the servants' sleeping room. He couldn't hear that characteristic sound of a dial tone. Cannon tried picking up the receiver again, but even so, he couldn't hear the usual dial tone. He tried dialing again, but had no apparent effect. Could the lightning last night have damaged some machine, breaking the extension line? The equipment in this mansion was all worn out. Cannon fully understood that even the smallest thing could have caused it to break down. He gave up trying to wake Goda with the phone and dashed over to the servants' sleeping room. How long has it been since I stopped sleeping and started lazily staring up at the ceiling? That vague sense of awakening was part of Natsuhi's usual morning experience. She always slept lightly, and she couldn't sleep at all without medicine. To Natsuhi, sleep was definitely not a happy thing. When she looked outside, she saw that it was still pouring. If she hadn't sensed a tiny amount of light, she might have mistakenly thought that it was still the previous night. She herself was one of the hosts, so she mustn't wake up later than her guests. Urging herself on, she raised up her body, which still hadn't completely recovered from yesterday's weariness. No one would torment her as long as she remained inside this room, and her headache wouldn't get any worse here. This room was the only place she could find peace. So when she left it, it meant returning to the world where her husband's siblings kept trying to stab each other in the back. In that case, wouldn't it be better just to stay locked up in this room forever? That ridiculous notion brought a bitter smile to Natsuhi's face. She was starting to sound like Kinzo. Though she often complained about Kinzo staying locked up in his own room and refusing to attend to everyone else, the truth was that she longed to do the same. Natsuhi gave her head a small shake, and her fantasy was replaced by the reawakening of her usual headache. When she reached for the doorknob trying to leave the room, her hand touched the scorpion charm that she had hung from it before going to sleep the previous night. It was Maria's charm, which Natsuhi had received from Jessica. Didn't Jessica say something about it having the power to repel magic, telling her to hang it from her doorknob? Maybe it was thanks to the charm that at least this room had been protected from the malice of her husband's siblings. As she thought this, her mood began to get a little more cheerful. I wonder if I have Jessica to thank for the little bits of peaceful sleep I managed to receive. Then Natsuhi remembered. That's right. Last night I promised Jessica that I'd give her a charm of my own in exchange for this one, didn't I? Natsuhi opened a drawer on her dresser and took out an antique accessory case that she had treasured when she was a child. Inside, there were many small objects that Natsuhi had thought were valuable at the time. From amidst those, she pulled out a red pouch. Inside was a small, round mirror about 10 centimeters across. It looked quite old, but the design on the back of the mirror was very ornate, and it looked like something with historical value. At the very least, it seemed much more authentic than the other charm, which looked like a plastic scorpion keychain. She had heard that this was a spiritual mirror for warding off evil spirits, and she had been given it specifically by her grandmother when her grandfather's mementos had been distributed. It had been believed since long ago that a strange power resided in this mirror. Perhaps people thought it could reflect calamity and malice in the same way it reflected light. Natsui returned the mirror to its pouch. It would probably be a fitting object to hand over to Jessica. Just as she was placing it in her pocket, the sound of someone knocking on the door suddenly echoed throughout the room. Yes? Good morning, madame. It is Genji. My apologies for waking you so early. I'm coming now. What is it? No servant had ever come to her this early in the morning, nor had they come to wake her in person. Perhaps something bad had happened. Maybe some fatal oversight had been made while preparing breakfast, something that would shame the household in front of their guests. Natsui took a deep breath in anticipation for whatever troubles she was about to hear of. When she opened the door, Genji once again gave a morning greeting while bowing deeply. Natsui tentatively responded. Good morning. Did something happen? My apologies. It would seem that the telephones have broken down due to the lightning last night. The extension telephone isn't working, so please forgive my coming to see you directly. The extension telephone isn't working? That will be troublesome. Will it be possible to fix it? I am afraid we don't know the location of the damage. Later on, I would like to call in an expert and have him repair it. Does that mean we'll be unable to have it repaired until after the typhoon passes? Then it will remain broken down for the duration of our guest's stay. Will that hamper our efforts to care for our guests? We will do all we can to ensure there are no problems. Very well. I'm counting on you to make sure we have no blunders. Natsui let out a small sigh of relief. She had been prepared for the worst, but damage to the telephones wasn't the kind of trouble she was worried about. Then again, even this would probably be enough to spark sarcasm from Ava. Natsui gave her head a light shake. Are the preparations for breakfast proceeding well? As to that, we haven't been able to find Goda. The arrangements for breakfast have yet to be carried out. What did you say? Natsui was indignant. To her, this was a much bigger problem than the phones not working. And despite that, this piece of information was the part that had been postponed. Why did everything go well most of the time, and then come to something like this when the relatives were visiting? Natsui put her hand to her forehead and shook her head. Well, I suppose he slept in. At any rate, just see to it that someone hurries up and prepares breakfast. I don't care who. What? Natsui exited into the hall and turned around for a second to close the door to her room. The creepy thing she saw there silenced her completely. It was an unpleasant sight, as though someone had dipped their fingers in a reddish-black liquid and scratched at the door around the doorknob. It was probably some sort of awful prank, arranged by some person who wanted to make it look as though they'd tried to force the door with bloody hands. What sort of prank is this? How awful! I also just noticed it as I came to call you. I will clean it later. Perhaps this is a vulgar joke by one of the guests. Disgusting, truly disgusting. Who in the world would pull such a childish and disgusting prank? Natsui had a pretty good idea, but of course there was no proof. So even if she just pushed the issue, it would just seem as though she was making a fuss about nothing. In fact, it would surely be better to act as though she hadn't even realized that such a prank had been played on her. Natsui gave the order to have it cleaned and headed off to the parlor with a squeak of her heels. When Natsui and Genji arrived in the parlor, Ava and Hideyoshi were already there. Good morning, everyone. Morning, Natsui-san. Our Goda-san would be making us breakfast, too. My stomach's been getting all excited since I woke up.
After all, it seems food is all you can look forward to at the head family household.
I'm pleased to see that you too are in high spirits so early in the morning, Ava-san.
Just wakes up and starts insulting people.
Yep. With a weary expression, Natsuhi returned Eva's gaze, which was fiercely competitive despite the early hour. Then Kanon jogged in. After bowing an apology to the relatives for running inside the mansion, he noticed Genji and told him something in a small voice. Kanon, have you still not found Goda?
My apologies, madam. I went all over the inside of the mansion and the guest house, but I still haven't found him.
I wish we were able to see a sprite where Kanon just, like, a sprite that's specific for Kanon going through the rain without an umbrella. Because I think he'd look like a wet cat, and I want to see that. Where in the world has he gone? At any rate, breakfast is a higher priority than finding Goda right now. See to it immediately.
Yes.
Kanon glanced at Genji. It seemed he had something else to report, but was uncertain whether or not the words should come from him. Genji nodded and decided to give the report himself. Madam, it is not only Goda. Your husband is also nowhere to be found. My husband? Yes. Even before visiting you, I went to his room to tell him that breakfast wasn't being prepared, but I did not find him there. Furthermore, he is not the only one missing. Rudolph-sama and his wife, and Rosa-sama, are nowhere to be found. Not in the guest house? Nor the mansion?
Yes. They were not in their rooms in the guest house either.
When she'd heard that Goda alone was missing, she'd assumed he had slept in or was loafing around somewhere. However, now that she'd learned that several of the relatives were also nowhere to be seen, she began to take a slightly more optimistic view. Could last night's family conference have continued all night up until the present moment? If so, they might have wanted to cool their heads after being shut in a stuffy room, going out for walks on their own through the rain. The part about cooling their heads really sounded like something Kraus would say. Godo had probably been summoned to accompany them and aid them in some way. Godo was not a man who lost track of time. He had to understand that preparations for breakfast would be hindered if he did not return. However, maybe the family conference had continued until this very moment, with an atmosphere that would make it hard for anyone to slip out. Yes, that theory would be quite convincing for Natsuhi. She remembered the illusion she'd felt that morning, as though the previous night had never ended. When she learned that the feeling wasn't just an illusion, she once again took a deep, weary breath. After all, the banquet of filthy vultures circling Kinzo's property was still going on. Perhaps they are still discussing the inheritance somewhere in the garden, or maybe the beach. At any rate, if we don't call Goda back, we'll never be able to begin preparations for breakfast. So what you're saying? Are Nissan and the rest still continuing their discussion? She had planned to say it in a small voice, but Hideyoshi overheard Natsui and managed to grasp the situation.
Nissan and Rudolph sure are tough. Maybe it's just Youth and Rosa's case. Just a bit after midnight, the two of us were so tired that we headed back to bed. Though I do remember that Nissan and the rest were still having a heated discussion at that point. Men certainly aren't pleasant when they get all fired up.
Natsui snorted, her face still blank. Kanon, search outside. If you find Goda, tell him to return immediately and begin preparing breakfast.
Certainly. Natsuhine-san, we don't know for sure that they're outside, do we? Couldn't they also be inside Father's study?
I see. That's certainly possible. I don't know what path their conversation took, but there's certainly a chance they moved into Father's study and let him in on the discussion. I can't imagine that Father would willingly let them bring such a detestable topic into his study.
You really think so? Well then, there's nothing we can do. I'm sorry, Genji-san and Kanon-kun. Could you search outside? It wouldn't be that strange for Nissan to suggest they go outside for a walk to cool their heads. Even in this weather. I'll go to Father's study. Who knows, they might actually be in there after all.
Eva-sama, Eva-san, why did I say sama? Ava-san, I couldn't ask a guest like you to exert herself so. I will go. I can also wish him a good morning while I'm at it.
Oh, then I'll leave it in your hands. Though I somehow doubt he'll return your greeting. Natsuhine-san, have you always been on such good terms with father?
I don't know whether you could call it that, but I'm sure that I have gained his trust as the wife of the successor to the Ushiromiya family.
Then I'm sure he'll at least answer you, right? I'd like to at least have breakfast with father. Do you think you could convince him to come down and join us? It seems that he thoroughly despises the rest of us. But I'm sure he'll listen to you if he trusts you that much.
You keep this shit up and you're gonna have to catch these fucking hands.
It would be a pretty bad idea to pick a fight with Ava.
I do. You know what? I think Nazui could just be so angry that she could just lay her out flat in one punch.
I think Ava would like parry her or something. There's no way.
I don't think there's any way Ava would
Maybe she
expect
wouldn't.
Natsui to throw a
Yeah,
punch. I think it's full on like Natsui's like, I'm sick of your shit, and Ava is not expecting it at all.
yeah. After speaking so boldly, if you're unable to convince father and come down alone, then I doubt you'll ever be able to claim that you've earned his trust again.
I am not confident, but I will try. Natsui responded, looking discouraged. However, knowing Kinzo's temperament, she had absolutely no confidence in her ability to bring him out. Ava was clearly mocking her, confident that Natsui wouldn't be able to get Kinzo to come down. But even so, Natsui would lose face if she gave up, saying it was impossible and letting Ava go instead. Ava's mean-spirited and unreasonable demand made Natsui clench her fist slightly. When Genji realized this, he softly spoke to her over her shoulder. Madam, please take this if you would. And this is... Genji had handed Natsui a sparkling gold key of ornate design. It was the key to Kinzo's study. The study had an auto lock and could be unlocked as long as Kinzo forbade entrance. However, since Genji was especially trusted by Kinzo, he was allowed to carry a key to that door. But if this key is used, won't you also receive the blame? Genji is such a fucking real one.
Yeah.
It's like, show that bitch Ava, here's the key. When the master is sleeping deeply, simply knocking on the door will not suffice. And it will be more difficult to persuade the master to leave his room if he must talk through the door. Please, use this. Genji. Until now, Natsui has thought of Genji as a cold servant who wouldn't do anything for her since he worked directly under Kinzo. But it looked like she would have to alter her understanding of him. She wanted to communicate her gratitude, but by then, Genji had already turned his back on her and was walking down the corridor with Cannon. But as Natsui watched them go, the words directed at her from behind were sneering.
Well then, you must bring father with you, okay? After all, it's his son's precious wife who's asking. I'm sure he'll listen to you. We're guests, so we'll just relax here at our leisure.
Quit it, Ava, you're taking this too far. Sorry, Natsui-ne-san, but we're oh fuck, shit. We're counting on you to deal with with father. Without answering, Natsui forcefully spun around on her heels and quickly left that place. After all that excitement the previous night, there was no way anyone was going to wake up early. Actually, I just looked up. How about we end that here?
Yeah.
Alright. Save! Alright. We're a little bit further in.
Yeah. It's all coming together.
We're inching further and further.
Hell yeah.
God, can you imagine if I was doing like 30-minute episodes for these?
Oh, yeah.
Oof. All right. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Umineko.
Thank you. Make sure to like and subscribe.
And hit
Drop a
that
comment
bell.
down in the comment. Yeah.
And slap that bell. Demolish
If you
that
like ringing
subscribe
bells.
button.
Yeah.
Anyway, bye.